Breakfast Bible Bites.
Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast Bible Bites. I wonder this morning if you ever feel like I sometimes feel, and that is, how can God possibly use someone like me in his amazing plan? I'm not very important, or very special, or very clever, or very rich. How can God possibly use somebody like me in an amazing way? Well, this morning our story from the Bible is about a time when God did just that. He used somebody in an incredibly amazing way that you wouldn't have expected. And this story is the story of Ruth. Now, the story actually starts with an Israelite woman. Now, remember, the Israelites were God's special and chosen people. He had big plans and big promises for those people. And Naomi was one of those people. And she and her husband and her 2 sons had left Israel and they'd gone to another land called Moab because there wasn't much food in Israel at that time. And while they were there, her 2 sons got married to Moabite women. And they were called Orpah and Ruth, who's the star of our story this morning. But you know what? While they were there, after a little while, something really sad happened. Naomi's husband and her 2 sons died. And Naomi was left alone with Orpah and Ruth. And Naomi said to them, "Go back to your mother and your families, because I'm going to go back to Israel, because I've heard that God has given them food there." Orpah said okay, and she went back to live with her family in Moab. But Ruth said to Naomi, "No, I'm going to stay with you. Your people are going to become my people, and your God is going to become my God." So Ruth and Naomi travelled together until they got back to Naomi's hometown in Israel, and it was the town of Bethlehem. And maybe you can think of another story in the Bible with the town of Bethlehem in it. Once they were there, they needed to get food for themselves. So Ruth went out to the fields and she started gathering up grain for them to eat. And it just so happened that it was the field of a man named Boaz. Now, Boaz was a kind and generous man, and he took very good care of Ruth and Naomi, and he made sure that they all had plenty to eat. Eventually, Ruth and Boaz got married, and shortly after that, they had a little baby boy. And this is where the story gets really special, because that little baby boy grew up and he had children and his children had children, and Ruth became the great-grandmother of King David himself. And further down the line, many hundreds of years later, from that family came Jesus. Ruth became part of the family of Jesus, our Saviour. But Ruth wasn't an Israelite. She wasn't born into God's special people. So you might have thought, how could God use somebody like her? She wasn't part of the special promises that God made to his people. But God took Ruth and he had a plan for her life, and he made her a part of Jesus' family. What an incredible encouragement this is to us today. Because God can take anybody and use them in a mighty way if they're willing for him to use them like that.